The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Canti 21 through
25.
Canto 21. From bridge to bridge thus, speaking other things of which my comedy cares not to sing, we came along and held the summit, when we halted to behold another fissure of Malebolgia and other vain laments, and I beheld it marvellously dark. As in the arsenal of the Venetians boils in the winter the tenacious pitch to smear their unsound vessels over again, for sail they cannot, and instead thereof one makes his vessel new, one recocks the ribs of that which many a voyage has made, one hammers at the prow, one at the stern, this one makes oar, and that one cordage twists, another mends the mainsail and the mizzen. Thus, not by fire, but by the art divine, was boiling down below there a dense pitch, which upon every side the bank belied. I saw it, but I did not see within it aught but the bubbles that the boiling raised, and all swell up and resubside compressed. The while below there fixedly I gazed, my leader, crying out, "Beware, beware!" drew me unto himself from where I stood. Then I turned round as one who is impatient to see what it behoves him to escape, in whom a sudden terror doth a man, who, while he looks, delays not his departure, and I beheld behind us a black devil, running along upon the crag, approach. Ah, how ferocious was he in his aspect, and how he seemed to me in action ruthless, with open wings and light upon his feet. His shoulders, which sharp-pointed were and high, the sinner did encumber with both haunches, and he held clutched the sinews of the feet. From off our bridge he said, "O Malebranche, behold one of the elders of Saint Zita, plunge him beneath, for I return for others unto that town, which is well furnished with them. All these are barraters, except Bonturo, no and a yes for money there is changed." He hurled him down, and over the hard crag turned round, and never was a mastiff loosened in so much hurry to pursue a thief. The other sank, and rose again face downward, but the demons, under cover of the bridge, cried, "Here the Santo Volto has no place. Here swims one otherwise than in the Sergio. Therefore, if for our gaffs thou wishest not, do not uplift thyself above the pitch." They seized him then with more than 100 rakes. They said, "It here behoves thee to dance covered, that, if thou canst, thou secretly mayst pilfer." Not otherwise the cooks their scullions make, immerse into the middle of the cauldron the meat with hooks, so that it may not float. Said the good master to me, "That it be not apparent thou art here, crouch thyself down behind a jag, that thou mayest have some screen. And for no outrage that is done to me be thou afraid, because these things I know, for once before was I in such a scuffle." Then he passed on beyond the bridge's head, and as upon the 6th bank he arrived, need was for him to have a steadfast front. With the same fury, and the same uproar, as dogs leap out upon a mendicant, who on a sudden begs where he stops, they issued from beneath the little bridge, and turned against him all their grappling irons. But he cried out, "Be none of you malignant. Before those hooks of yours lay hold of me, let one of you step forward, who may hear me, and then take counsel as to grappling me." They all cried out, "Let Malacoda go," whereat one started, and the rest stood still, and he came to him, saying, "What avails it?" "Thinkest thou, Malacoda, to behold me advanced into this place," my master said, "safe hitherto from all your skill of fence, without the will divine and fate auspicious? Let me go on, for it in heaven is willed that I another show this savage road." Then was his arrogance so humbled in him, that he let fall his grapnel at his feet, and to the others said, "Now strike him not." And unto me, my guide, "O thou who sittest among the splinters of the bridge crouched down, securely now return to me again." Wherefore I started and came swiftly to him, and all the devils forward thrust themselves, so that I feared they would not keep their compact. And thus beheld I once afraid the soldiers who issued under safeguard from Caprona, seeing themselves among so many foes. Close did I press myself with all my person beside my leader, and turned not mine eyes from off their countenance, which was not good. They lowered their rakes, and "Wilt thou have me hit him," they said to one another, "on the rump?" and answered, "Yes, see that thou nick him with it." But the same demon who was holding parley with my conductor turned him very quickly, and said, be quiet, Scarmiglione," then said to us, "You can no farther go forward upon this crag, because is lying all shattered at the bottom, the 6th arch. And if it still doth please you to go onward, pursue your way along upon this rock, near is another crag that yields a path. Yesterday, 5 hours later than this hour, 1,266 years were complete, that here the way was broken. I send in that direction some of mine, to see if any one doth err himself. Go ye with them, for they will not be vicious. Step forward, Alighiero and Calcabrina, began he to cry out, and thou, Cagnazzo and Barbaricha, do thou guide the 10. Come forward, Libicocco and Dragignazzo, and Tusciriato and Graffiacane, and Farfarello and mad Rubicante. Search ye all round about the boiling pitch. Let these be safe as far as the next crag, that all unbroken passes o'er the dens. Oh me, what is it, master, that I see? Pray let us go, I said, without an escort, if thou knowest how, since for myself I ask none. If thou art as observant as thy wont is, dost thou not see that they do gnash their teeth, and with their brows are threatening woe to us? And he to me, I will not have thee fear. Let them gnash on according to their fancy, because they do it for those boiling wretches. Along the left-hand dike they wheeled about, but first had each one thrust his tongue between his teeth towards their leader for a signal, and he made a trumpet of his rump. Canto 22. I have erewhile seen horsemen moving camp, begin the storming, and their muster make, and sometimes starting off for their escape. Vaunt couriers have I seen upon your land, O Aretines and foragers go forth, tournament stricken, and the joustings run, sometimes with trumpets, and sometimes with bells, with kettle drums, and signals of the castles, and with our own, and with outlandish things, but never yet with bagpipes so uncouth did I see horsemen move, nor infantry, nor ship by any sign of land or star. We went upon our way with the 10 demons, ah, savage company, but in the church with saints, and in the tavern with the gluttons. Ever upon the pitch was my intent, to see the whole condition of that Bolgia, and of the people who therein were burned. Even as the dolphins, when they make a sign to mariners by arching of the back, that they should counsel take to save their vessel, thus sometimes to alleviate his pain, one of the sinners would display his back,
and in less time conceal it than it lightens, as on the brink of water in a ditch.
the frogs stand only with their muzzles out, so that they hide their feet and other bulk. So upon every side the sinners stood, but ever as Barbaricha near them came, thus underneath the boiling they withdrew. I saw, and still my heart doth shudder at it, one waiting thus, even as it comes to pass, one frog remains, and down another dives. And Graffiacan, who most confronted him, grappled him by his tresses smeared with pitch, and drew him up, so that he seemed an otter. I knew before the names of all of them, so had I noted them when they were chosen, and when they called each other, listened how. O Rubicante, see that thou do lay thy claws upon him, so that thou mayst flay him, cried all together the accursed ones. And I, why, master, see to it if thou canst, that thou mayest know who is this luckless wight, thus come into his adversary's hands. Near to the side of him my leader drew, asked of him whence he was, and he replied, I in the kingdom of Navarre was born. My mother placed me servant to a lord, for she had borne me to a ribald knave, destroyer of himself and of his things. Then I domestic was of good King Tybalt, and I set me there to practise barratry, for which I pay the reckoning in this heat. And Ciriato, from whose mouth projected on either side a tusk, as in a boar, caused him to feel how one of them could rip. Among malicious cats the mouse had come, but Barbaricha clasped him in his arms, and said, Stand ye aside, while I enfork him. And to my master he turned round his head. Ask him again, he said, if more thou wish to know from him, before someone destroy him. The Guide. Now tell then of the other culprits. Knowest thou any one who is a Latian under the pitch? And he, I separated lately from one who is a neighbor to it. Would that I still were covered up with him, for I should fear not either claw nor hook. And Libicocco, we have borne too much, and with his grapnel seized him by the arm,
So that by rending he tore off a tendon. Ike Dragignazzo wished to pounce upon him.
down at the legs, whence their decurion turned round and around about with evil look. When they again somewhat were pacified of him, who still was looking at his wound, demanded my conductor without stay, Who is that one from whom a luckless parting
Thou sayest thou hast made to come ashore? And he replied, It was Friar Gomita.
of Galura, vessel of all fraud, who had the enemies of his lord in hand, and dealt so with them each exults thereat. Money he took, and let them smoothly off, as he says, and in other offices a barrator was he, not mean, but sovereign. Foregatherers with him, one Dom Michel Zanche of Logodoro, and of Sardinia to gossip, never do their tongues feel tired. Oh me, see that one, how he grinds his teeth! Still farther would I speak, but am afraid lest he to scratch my itch be making ready. And the Grand Provost turned to Farfarello, who rolled his eyes about as if to strike, said, Stand aside there, thou malicious bird. If you desire either to see or hear, the terror-stricken recommenced thereon, Tuscans or Lombards, I will make them come. But let the Malebranche cease a little, so that these may not their revenges fear, and I, down sitting in this very place, for one that I am, will make 7 come, when I shall whistle, as our custom is, to do whenever one of us comes out. Cagnazzo at these words his muzzle lifted, shaking his head, and said, Just hear the trick which he has thought of, down to throw himself. Whence he, whose snares in great abundance had, responded, I by far too cunning am, when I procure for mine a greater sadness. Alighieri held not in, but running counter unto the rest, said to him, If thou dive, I will not follow thee upon the gallop, but I will beat my wings above the pitch, the height be left, and be the bank a shield, to see if thou alone dost countervail us. O thou who readest, thou shalt hear new sport. Each to the other side his eyes averted, he first, who most reluctant was to do it. The Navarrese selected well his time, planted his feet on land, and in a moment leaped and released himself from their design. Whereat each one was suddenly stung with shame, but he most who was cause of the defeat. Therefore he moved and cried, Thou art overtaken. But little it availed, for wings could not outstrip the fear. The other one went under, and flying upward he his breast directed. Not otherwise the duck upon a sudden dives under, when the falcon is approaching, and upward he returneth, cross and weary. Infuriate at the mockery, Calcabrina, flying behind him, followed close, desirous the other should escape, to have a quarrel. And when the barrator had disappeared, he turned his talons upon his companion, and grappled with him right above the moat. But sooth the other claw was a doughty sparhawk to clapper claw him well, and both of them fell in the middle of the boiling pond. A sudden intercessor was the heat, but nevertheless of rising there was naught, to such degree they had their wings maligned. Lamenting with the others, Barabaricha made 4 of them fly to the other side with all their gaffs, and very speedily this side and that they to their post descended. They stretched their hooks toward the pigeons snared, who were already baked within the crust, and in this manner busied did we leave them.
Inferno, Canto 23. Silent, alone, and without company, we went, the one in front, the other after, as go the minor friars along their way. Upon the fable of Aesop was directed my thought by reason of the present quarrel, where he has spoken of the frog and mouse. For Mo and Isa are not more alike than this one is to that, if well we couple end and beginning with a steadfast mind. And even as one thought from another springs, so afterwards from that was born another, which the first fear within me double made. Thus did I ponder. These on our account are laughed to scorn, with injury and scoff so great that much I think it must annoy them. If anger be engrafted on ill will, they will come after us more merciless than dog upon the leveret which he seizes. I felt my hair stand all on end already with terror, and stood backwardly intent, when I said, Master, if thou hidest not thyself and me forthwith, of Malebranche I am in dread. We have them now behind us, so I imagine them, I already feel them. And he, if I were made of leaded glass, thine outward image should I not attract, sooner to me than I imprint the inner. Just now thy thoughts came in among my own, with similar attitude and similar face, so that of both one counsel soul I made. If preaventure the right bank so slope, that we to the next Bolgia can descend, we shall escape from the imagined chase. Not yet he finished rendering such opinion, when I beheld them come with outstretched wings, not far remote, with will to seize upon us.
My leader on a sudden seized me up, even as a mother who by noises wakened, close beside her sees the enkindled flames, who takes her son and flies, and does not stop, having more care of him than of herself, so that she clothes her only with a shift, and downward from the top of the hard bank supine he gave him to the pendant rock that one side of the other bulge walls. Ne'er ran so swiftly water through a sluice to turn the wheel of any land-built mill when nearest to the paddles it approaches, as did my master down along that border, bearing me with him on his breast away as his own son, and not as a companion. Hardly the bed of the ravine below his feet had reached, ere they had reached the hill right over us, but he was not afraid, for the high providence which had ordained to place the ministers of the fifth mode, the power of thence departing took from all. The painted people there below we found, who went about with footsteps very slow,
weeping, and in their semblance tired and vanquished. They had on mantles with the hoods low down,
before their eyes, and fashioned of the cut that in Cologne they for the monks are made. Without they gilded are so that it dazzles, but inwardly all leaden and so heavy that Frederick used to put them on of straw. O everlastingly fatiguing mantle! Again we turned us, still to the left hand, along with them, intent on their sad plaint. But owing to the weight, that weary folk came on so tardily that we were new in company at each motion of the haunch. Whence I unto my leader, see thou find some one who may by deed or name be known, and thus in going move thine eye about. And one, who understood the Tuscan speech, cried to us from behind, Stay ye your feet, ye who so run athwart the dusky air. Perhaps thou'lt have from me what thou demandest. Whereat the leader turned him and said, Wait, and then according to his pace proceed. I stopped, and too beheld I show great haste of spirit in their faces to be with me, but the burden in the narrow way delayed them. When they came up, long with an eye askance, they scanned me without uttering a word, then to each other turned and said together, He by the action of his throat seems living, and if dead they are, by what privilege go they uncovered by the heavy stole? Then said to me, Tuscan, who to the college of miserable hypocrites art come, do not disdain to tell us who thou art. And I to them, Born was I, and grew up, in the great town on the fair river of Arno, and with the body am I've always had. But who are ye, in whom there trickles down along your cheeks such grief as I behold, and what pain is upon you that so sparkles? And one replied to me, These orange cloaks are made of lead so heavy that the weights
cause in this way their balances to creak. Frati Gaudenti were we, and Bolognese.
I Catalano and he Lotharingo named, and together taken by thy city, as the wont is to take one man alone, for maintenance of its peace, and we were such that still it is apparent round Caradingo. O friars, began I, you're iniquitous, but said no more, for to mine eyes there rushed one crucified with 3 stakes on the ground. When me he saw, he writhed himself all over, blowing into his beard with suspirations, and the friar Catalan, who noticed this, said to me, This transfixed one whom thou seest counselled the Pharisees that it was meet to put one man to torture for the people. Crosswise and naked is he on the path, as thou perceivest, and he needs must feel, whoever passes, first how much he weighs. And in like mode his father-in-law is punished within this mote, and the others of the council, which for the Jews was a malignant seed. And thereupon I saw Virgilius marvel over him who was extended on the cross so vilely in eternal banishment. Then he directed to the friar his voice, Be not displeased, if granted thee, to tell us if to the right hand any pass slope down, by which we too may issue forth from here, without constraining some of the black angels to come and extricate us from this deep. Then he made answer, Nearer than thou hopest there is a rock, that forth from the great circle proceeds, and crosses all the cruel valleys, save that at this 'tis broken, and does not bridge it. You will be able to mount up the ruin, that sidelong slopes, and at the bottom rises. The leader stood a while with head bowed down, then said, The business badly be recounted, who grapples with his hook the sinners yonder. And the friar, Many of the devil's vices once heard I at Bologna, and among them that he's a liar and the father of lies.
Thereat my leader with great strides went on, somewhat disturbed with anger in his looks, whence from the heavy laden I departed, after the prints of his beloved feet. Inferno, Canto 24. In that part of the youthful year wherein the sun his locks beneath Aquarius tempers, and now the nights draw near to half the day.
What time the hoarfrost copies on the ground the outward semblance of her sister white, but little lasts the temper of her pen. The husbandman, whose forage faileth him, rises, and looks, and seeth the champaign all gleaming white, whereat he beats his flank, returns indoors, and up and down laments, like a poor wretch, who knows not what to do. Then he returns, and hope revives again. Seeing the world has changed its countenance in a little time, he takes his shepherd's crook, and forth the little lambs to pasture drives. Thus did the master fill me with alarm, when I beheld his forehead so disturbed, and to the ailment came as soon as the plaster. For as we came unto the ruined bridge, the leader turned to me with that sweet look which at the mountain's foot I first beheld. His arms he opened, after some advisement within himself elected, looking first well at the ruin, and laid hold of me. And even as he who acts and meditates, for I it seems that he provides beforehand, so upward lifting me towards the summit of a huge rock, he scanned another crag, saying, To that one grapple afterwards, but try first if it is such that will hold thee. This was no way for one clothed with a cloak, for hardly we, he light, and I pushed upward, were able to ascend from jag to jag. And had it not been that upon that precinct shorter was the ascent than on the other, he I know not, but I had been dead beat. But because Malabolgia towards the mouth of the profoundest well is all inclining, the structure of each valley doth import that one bank rises and the other sinks. Still we arrived at length upon the point wherefrom the last stone breaks itself asunder. The breath was from my lungs so milked away when I was up that I could go no farther. Nay, I sat down upon my first arrival. Now it behoves thee thus to put off sloth, my master said, for sitting upon down or under quilt one cometh not to fame, withouten which whoso his life consumes such vestige leaveth of himself on earth, as smoke in air or in the water foam. And therefore raise thee up, overcome the anguish with spirit that overcometh every battle, if with its heavy body it sink not. A longer stairway it behoves thee mount, 'tis not enough from these to have departed. Let it avail thee, if thou understand me. Then I uprose, showing myself provided better with breath than I did feel myself, and said, Go on, for I am strong and bold. Upward we took our way along the crag, which jagged was, and narrow, and difficult, and more precipitous far than that before. Speaking I went, not to appear exhausted, whereat a voice from the next moat came forth, not well adapted to articulate words. I know not what it said, though o'er the back I would now as of the arch that passes there, but he seemed moved to anger who was speaking. I was bent downward, but my living eyes could not attain the bottom for the dark, wherefore Master, see that thou arrive at the next round, and let us descend the wall, for as from hence I hear and understand not, so I look down, and nothing I distinguish. Other response, he said, I make thee not, except the doing, for the modest asking ought to be followed by the deed in silence. We from the bridge descended at its head, where it connects itself with the 8th bank, and then was manifest to me the Bolgia, and I beheld therein a terrible throng of serpents, and of such a monstrous kind that the resemblance still congeals my blood. Let Libya boast no longer with her sand, for if Chelidri, Jaculi, and Phere she breeds, with Chencri and with Amphisbaena, neither so many plagues nor so malignant e'er showed me with all Ethiopia, nor with whatever on the Red Sea is. Among this cruel and most dismal throng people were running naked and affrighted, without the hope of hole or heliotrope. They had their hands with serpents bound behind them, these riveted upon their reins the tail and head, and were in front of them entwined. And lo, at one who was upon our side there darted forth a serpent which transfixed him, there where the neck is knotted to the shoulders. Nor so quickly ere nor I was written, as he took fire and burned, and ashes wholly behoved it that in falling he became. And when he on the ground was thus destroyed, the ashes drew together, and of themselves into himself they instantly returned. Even thus by the great sages 'tis confessed the phoenix dies, and then is born again, when it approaches its 500th year. On herb or grain it feeds not in its life, but only on tears of incense and omomum, and nard and myrrh are its last winding sheet. And as he is who falls, and knows not how, by force of demons who to earth down drag him, or other operation that binds man, when he rises and around him looks, wholly bewildered by the mighty anguish which he has suffered, and in looking sighs, such was that sinner after he had risen. Justice of God, oh how severe it is, that blows like these and vengeance poureth down. The guide thereafter asked him who he was, whence he replied, I reigned from Tuscany a short time since into this cruel gorge. A bestial life, and not a human, pleased me, even as the mule I was. I'm Vanni Fucci, beast, and Pistoia was my worthy den. And I unto the guide, Tell him to stir not, and ask what crime has thrust him here below, for once a man of blood and wrath I saw him. And the sinner who had heard dissembled not, but unto me directed mind and face, and with a melancholy shame was painted. Then said, It pains me more that thou hast caught me amid this misery where thou seest me, than when I from the other life was taken. What thou demandest I cannot deny, so low am I put down because I robbed the sacristy of the fair ornaments, and falsely once 'twas laid upon another. But thou mayest not such a sight enjoy, if thou shalt e'er be out of the dark places. Thine ears to my announcement open here. Pistoia first of Neri groweth meagre, then Florence doth renew her men and manners. Mars draws a vapour up from Val di Magra, which is with turbid clouds enveloped round, and with impetuous and bitter tempest for Campo Pisan shall be the battle, when it shall suddenly rend the mist asunder, so that each Bianco shall thereby be smitten. And this I've said that it may give thee pain.
Inferno, Canto 25. At the conclusion of his words, the thief lifted his hands aloft with both the figs, crying, Take that, God, for at thee I aim them. From that time forth the serpents were my friends, for one entwined itself about his neck as if it said, I will not thou speak more. And round his arms another, and rebound him, clinching itself together so in front, that with them he could not a motion make. Pistoia, ah, Pistoia, why resolve not to burn thyself to ashes, and so perish, since in ill doing thou thy seed excellest? Through all the sombre circles of this hell, spirit, I saw naught against God so proud, not he who fell at Thebes down from the walls. He fled away and spake no further word, and I beheld a centaur full of rage, come crying out, where is the scoffer? I do not think Maremma has so many serpents as he had all along his back, as far as where our countenance begins, upon the shoulders and behind the nape. With wings wide open was a dragon lying, and he sets fire to all that he encounters. My master said, That one is Cacus, who beneath the rock upon Mount Aventine created oftentimes a lake of blood. He goes not on the same road with his brothers by reason of the fraudulent theft he made of the great herd which he had near to him, whereat his torturous actions ceased beneath the mace of Hercules, who peradventure gave him 100, and he felt not 10. While he was speaking thus, he had pressed by in spirits had underneath us come, of which nor I was aware, nor my leader, until what time they shouted, Who are you? On which account our story made a halt, and then we were intent on them alone. I did not know them, but it came to pass, as it is wont to happen by some chance, that one to name the other was compelled, exclaiming, Where can Cianfa have remained? Whence I, so that the leader might attend, upward from chin to nose my finger laid. If thou art, reader, slow now to believe what I shall say, it will no marvel be, for I who saw it hardly can admit it. As I was holding raised on them my brows, behold, a serpent with 6 feet darts forth in front of one, and fastens wholly on him. With middle feet it bound him round the paunch, and with the forward ones his arms it seized, then thrust its teeth through one cheek and the other. The hindermost it stretched upon his thighs, and put its tail through in between the two, and up behind along the reins outspread it. Ivy was never fastened by its barbs unto a tree so, as this horrible reptile upon the other's limbs entwined his own. Then they stuck close as if of heated wax. They had been made, and intermixed their color. Nor one nor the other seemed now what he was. Even as proceedeth on before the flame upward along the paper a brown color, which is not black as yet, and the white dies, the other two looked on, and each of them cried out, O me, Angelo, how thou changest! Behold, thou now art neither two nor one. Already the two heads had become one. When there appeared to us two figures mingled into one face wherein the two were lost. Of the four lists were fashioned the two arms, the thighs and legs, the belly and the chest, members became that never yet were seen. Every original aspect there was cancelled too, and yet none did the perverted image appear, and such departed with slow pace. Even as a lizard under the great scourge of days canicular, exchanging hedge, lighting appeareth, if the road it cross. Thus did appear, coming towards the bellies of the two others, a small fiery serpent, livid and black as is a peppercorn. And in that part whereat is first received our ailment, it one of them transfixed, then downward fell in front of him extended. The one transfixed looked at it, but said naught, nay, rather with feet motionless he yawned, just as if sleep or fever had assailed him. He at the serpent gazed, and it at him. One through the wound, the other through the mouth, smoked violently, and the smoke commingled. Henceforth be silent, Lucan, where he mentions wretched Sabellius and Nasidius, and wait to hear what now shall be shot forth. Be silent, Ovid, of Cadmus and Arethusa, for if him to a snake, her to a fountain, converts he fabling, that I grudge him not. Because two natures never front to front has he transmuted, so that both the forms to interchange their matter ready were. Together they responded in such wise, that to a fork the serpent cleft his tail, and eke the wounded do his feet together. The legs, together with the thighs themselves, adhered so, that in little time the juncture no sign whatever made that was apparent. He with the cloven tail assumed the figure, the other one was losing, and his skin became elastic, and the other's hard. I saw the arms draw inward at the armpits, and both feet of the reptile that were short lengthen as much as those contracted were. Thereafter the hind feet, together twisted, became the member that a man conceals, and of his own the wretch had two created, while both of them the exhalation veils with a new color, and engenders hair on one of them, and depilates the other. The one uprose, and down the other fell, through turning not away their impious lamps, underneath which each one his muzzle changed. He who was standing drew it towards the temples, and from excess of matter which came thither issued the ears from out the hollow cheeks. What did not backward run, and was retained of that excess, made to the face a nose, and the lips thickened far as was befitting. He who lay prostrate thrust his muzzle forward, and backward draws the ears into his head, in the same manner as the snail its horns. And so the tongue, which was entire and apt for speech before, is cleft, and the biforked in the other closes up, and the smoke ceases. The soul, which to a reptile had been changed, along the valley hissing takes to flight, and after him the other speaking sputters. Then did he turn upon him his new shoulders, and said to the other, I'll have Buoso run, crawling as I have done along this road. In this way I beheld the seventh ballast shift and reshift, and here be my excuse, the novelty, if aught my pen transgress. And notwithstanding that mine eyes might be somewhat bewildered, and my mind dismayed, they could not flee away so secretly, but that I plainly saw Puccio sciancato, and he it was whose soul of three companions which came in the beginning was not changed. The other was he whom thou, Gabriel, weepest. End of Inferno, Canti 21 to 25.
Recording by Aaron Decker. The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. Translated by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Inferno, Canto 26 to 30. Canto 26. Rejoice, O Florence, since thou art so great that over sea and land thou beatest thy wings, and throughout hell thy name is spread abroad. Among the thieves 5 citizens of thine like these I found, whence shame comes unto me, and thou thereby to no great honor risest. But if when morn is near our dreams are true, feel shalt thou in a little time from now what Prato, if none other, craves for thee. And if it now were, it were not too soon. Would that it were, seeing it needs must be, for 'twill grieve me more the more I age. We went our way, and up along the stairs the Bournes had made us to descend before. Remounted my conductor and drew me. And following the solitary path among the rocks and ridges of the crag, the foot, without the hand, sped not at all. Then sorrowed I, and sorrow now again, when I direct my mind to what I saw, and more my genius curb than I am wont, that it may run not unless virtue guide it, so that if some good star or better thing have given me good, I may myself not grudge it. As many as the hind, who on the hill rests at the time when he who lights the world his countenance keeps least concealed from us, while as the fly gives place unto the gnat, seeth the glow-worms down along the valley, perchance there where he ploughs and makes his vintage. With flames as manifold resplendent all was the 8th Bolgia, as I grew aware as soon as I was where the depth appeared. And such as he who with the bears avenged him beheld Elijah's chariot at departing, what time the steeds to heaven erect uprose, for with his eye he could not follow it, so as to see aught else than flame alone, even as a little cloud ascending upward. Thus each along the gorge of the entrenchment was moving, for not one reveals the theft, and every flame a sinner steals away. I stood upon the bridge uprisen to see, so that, if I had seized not on a rock, down had I fallen without being pushed. And the leader, who beheld me so attent, exclaimed, "Within the fires the spirits are, each swathes himself with that wherewith he burns." "My master," I replied, "by hearing thee I am more sure, but I surmised already it might be so, and already wished to ask thee, who is within that fire which comes so cleft at top? It seems uprising from the pyre where was Eteocles with his brother placed." He answered me, "Within there are tormented Ulysses and Diomed, and thus together they unto vengeance run as unto wrath. And there within their flame do they lament the ambush of the horse, which made the door whence issued forth the Romans' gentle seed. Therein is wept the craft, for which being dead, Didamia still deplores Achilles, and pain for the Palladium there is born." "If they within those sparks possess the power to speak," I said, "thee, master, much I pray and repray that the prayer be worth 1,000, if thou make no denial of awaiting until the horned flame shall hither come. Thou seest that with desire I lean towards it." And he to me, "Worthy is thy entreaty of much applause, and therefore I accept it, but take heed that thy tongue restrain itself. Leave me to speak, because I have conceived that which thou wishest, for they might disdain perchance, since they were Greeks, discourse of thine." When now the flame had come unto that point, where to my leader it seemed time and place, after this fashion did I hear him speak. O ye who are twofold within one fire, if I deserved of you while I was living, if I deserved of you or much or little when in the world I wrote the lofty verses, do not move on, but one of you declare whither, being lost, he went away to die. Then of the antique flame the greater horn, murmuring, began to wave itself about, even as a flame doth which the wind fatigues. Thereafterward, the summit to and fro, moving as if it were the tongue that spake, it uttered forth a voice, and said, When I from Circe had departed, who concealed me more than a year there, near unto Gaeta, or ever yet Aeneas named it so, nor fondness for my son, nor reverence for my old father, nor the due affection which joyous should have made Penelope, could overcome within me the desire I had to be experienced of the world and of the vice and virtue of mankind. But I put forth on the high open sea with one sole ship, and that small company by which I never had deserted been. Both of the shores I saw as far as Spain, far as Morocco, and the Isle of Sardis, and the others which that sea bathes round about. I and my company were old and slow, when at that narrow passage we arrived, where Hercules his landmarks set as signals, that man no further onward should adventure. On the right hand behind me I left Seville, and on the other already I had left Ceuta. O brothers, who amid 100,000 perils, I said, have come unto the west, to this so inconsiderable vigil which is remaining of your senses, still be ye unwilling to deny the knowledge, following the sun of the unpeopled world. Consider ye the seed from which ye sprang. Ye were not made to live like unto brutes, but for pursuit of virtue and of knowledge. So eager did I render my companions with this brief exhortation for the voyage, that then I hardly could have held them back. And having turned our stern unto the morning, we of the oars made wings for our mad flight, evermore gaining on the larboard side. Already all the stars of the other pole the night beheld, and ours so very low it did not rise above the ocean floor. 5 times rekindled, and as many quenched, had been the splendor underneath the moon, since we had entered into the deep pass, when there appeared to us a mountain, dim from distance, and it beheld to me so high as I had never any one beheld. Joyful were we, and soon it turned to weeping. For out of the new land a whirlwind rose, and smote upon the forepart of the ship. 3 times it made her whirl with all the waters. At the 4th time it made the stern uplift, and the prow downward go, as pleased another, until the sea above us closed again. Canto 27. Already was the flame erect and quiet, to speak no more, and now departed from us with the permission of the gentle poet, when yet another which behind it came caused us to turn our eyes upon its top by a confused sound that issued from it, as the Sicilian bull that bellowed first with the lament of him, and that was right, who with his file had modulated it, bellowed so with the voice of the afflicted, that notwithstanding it was made of brass, still it appeared with agony transfixed, thus by not having any way or issue at first from out the fire, to its own language converted were the melancholy words. But afterwards, when they had gathered way up through the point, giving it that vibration the tongue had given them in their passage out, we heard it said, O thou at whom I aim my voice, and who but now wast speaking Lombard, saying, Now go thy way, no more I urge thee. Because I come perchance a little late to stay and speak with me, let it not irk thee. Thou seest it irks not me, and I am burning. If thou but lately into this blind world hast fallen down from that sweet Lycian land, wherefrom I bring the whole of my transgression, say if the Romanuals have peace or war. For I was from the mountains there between Urbino and the yoke where Tiber bursts. I still was downward bent and listening, when my conductor touched me on the side, saying, Speak thou, this one elation is. And I, who had beforehand my reply in readiness, forthwith began to speak. O soul, that down below there art concealed, Romagna thine is not and never has been without war in the bosom of its tyrants. But open war I none have left there now. Ravenna stands as it long years have stood. The eagle of Polenta there is brooding, so that she covers Servia with her vans. The city which once made thou long resistance, and of the French a sanguinary heap, beneath the green paws finds itself again. Verruccio's ancient mastiff and the new, which made such bad disposal of Montagna, where they are wont to make wimbles of their teeth. The cities of Lemon and Santerno governs the lioncel of the white hare, who changes sides twixt summer-time and winter, and that of which the Savio bays the flank, even as it lies between the plain and mountain, lives between tyranny and a free state. Now I entreat thee, tell us who thou art. Be not more stubborn than the rest have been, so that thy name hold front there in the world. After the fire a little more had roared in its own fashion, the sharp point it moved this way and that, and then gave forth such breath. If I believed that my reply were made to one who the world would e'er return, this flame without more flickering would stand still. But inasmuch as never from this depth did any one return, if I hear true, without the fear of infamy, I answer, I was a man of arms, then Cordelier, believing thus begirt to make amends. And truly my belief had been fulfilled, but for the high priest, who may ill betide, who put me back into my former sins. And how and wherefore I will have thee hear. While I was still the form of bone and pulp my mother gave to me, the deeds I did were not those of a lion, but of a fox. The machinations and the covert ways I knew them all, and practised so their craft, that to the ends of the earth the sound went forth. When now unto that portion of mine age I saw myself arrived, when each one ought to lower the sails and coil away the ropes, that which before had pleased then displeased me, and penitent and confessing I surrendered. Ah, woe is me! And it would have bestead me. The leader of the modern Pharisees, having a war near unto Laerton, and not with Saracens, nor with the Jews, for each one of his enemies was Christian, and none of them had been to conquer Acre, nor merchandising in the Sultan's land, nor the high office, nor the sacred orders, in him regarded, nor in me that cord which used to make those girt with it more meagre. But even as Constantine sought out Sylvester to cure his leprosy within Soracte, so this one sought me out as an adept, to cure him of the fever of his pride. Counsel he asked of me, and I was silent, because his words appeared inebriate. And then he said, Be not thy heart afraid. Henceforth I thee absolve, and thou instruct me how to raise Palestrina to the ground. Heaven have I power to lock and to unlock, as thou dost know. Therefore the keys are two, the which my predecessor held not dear. Then urged me on his weighty arguments there, where my silence was the worst advice. And said I, Father, since thou washest me of that sin into which I now must fall, the promise long with the fulfillment short will make thee triumph in the lofty seat. Francis came afterward when I was dead for me, but one of the black cherubim said to him, Take him not, do me no wrong. He must come down among my servitors, because he gave the fraudulent advice from which time forth I have been at his hair. For who repents not cannot be absolved, nor can one both repent and will at once, because of the contradiction which consents not. O miserable me, how I did shudder when he seized on me, saying, Peradventure thou didst not think that I was a logician. He bore me into Minos, who entwined 8 times his tail about his stubborn back, and after he had bitten it in great rage, said, Of the thievish fire a culprit this. Wherefore here where thou seest I am lost, and vested thus in going I bemoan me. When it had thus completed its recital, the flame departed, uttering lamentations, writhing and flapping its sharp-pointed horn. Onward we passed, both I and my conductor, up o'er the crag above another arch, which the moat covers, where is paid the fee by those who, sowing discord, win their burden. Canto 28. Whoever could, e'en with untrammelled words, tell of the blood and of the wounds in full, which now I saw by many times narrating? Each tongue would for a certainty fall short, by reason of our speech and memory, that have small room to comprehend so much. If were again assembled all the people which formerly upon the fateful land of Puglia were lamenting for their blood shed by the Romans and the lingering war that of the rings made such illustrious spoils as Livy has recorded, who errs not, with those who felt the agony of blows by making counterstand to Robert Guiscard, and all the rest whose bones are gathered still at Ceperano, where a renegade was each Apulian, and at Tagliacozzo, where without arms the old Alardo conquered, and one his limb transpierced, and one lopped off, would show it would be nothing to compare with the disgusting mode of the 9th Bolgia. A cask by losing centerpiece or cant was never shattered so, as I saw one rent from the chin to where one breaketh wind. Between his legs was hanging down his entrails, his heart was visible, and the dismal sack that maketh excrement of what is eaten. While I was all absorbed in seeing him, he looked at me and opened with his hands his bosom, saying, "See how now I rend me, how mutilated, see is Mahomet. In front of me doth Ali weeping go, cleft in the face from forelock unto chin, and all the others whom thou here beholdest, disseminators of scandal and of schism while living were, and therefore are cleft thus. A devil is behind here, who doth cleave us thus cruelly, unto the falchion's edge, putting again each one of us this ream, when we have gone around the doleful road, by reason that our wounds are closed again, ere any one in front of him repass. But who art thou that musest on the crag, perchance to postpone going to the pain that is adjudged upon thine accusations? Nor death hath reached him yet, nor guilt doth bring him, my master made reply, to be tormented, but to procure him full experience. Me, who am dead, behooves it to conduct him down here through hell, from circle unto circle. And this is true as that I speak to thee. More than 100 were there when they heard him, who in the moat stood still to look at me, through wonderment oblivious of their torture. Now say to Fra Dolcino, then, to arm him, thou who perhaps wilt shortly see the sun, if soon he wish not here to follow me, so with provisions, that no stress of snow may give the victory to the Novarise, which otherwise to gain would not be easy. After 1 foot to go away he lifted, this word did Mahomet say unto me, then to depart upon the ground he stretched it. Another one who had his throat pierced through, and nose cut off close underneath the brows, had no longer but a single ear, staying to look in wonder with the others, before the others did his gillet open, which outwardly was red in every part, and said, O thou whom guilt doth not condemn, and whom I once saw up in Latian land, unless too great similitude deceive me, call to remembrance Pier de Medicina, if e'er thou see again the lovely plain that from Vercelli slopes to Marcabo, and make it known to the best two of Fano, to Messer Guido and Angiolello likewise, that if foreseeing here be not in vain, cast over from their vessel shall they be, and drowned near unto the Cattolica, by the betrayal of a tyrant fell. Between the isles of Cyprus and Majorca, Neptune ne'er yet beheld so great a crime, neither of pirates nor Argolic people. That traitor who sees only with one eye and holds the land, which some one here with me would fain be fasting from the vision of, will make them come unto a parley with him. Then will do so, that to Foccara's wind they shall not stand in need of vow or prayer. And I to him, show to me and declare, if thou wouldst have me bear up news of thee, who is this person of the bitter vision? Then did he lay his hand upon the jaw of one of his companions, and his mouth oped, crying, "This is he, and he speaks not. This one being banished every doubt submerged in Caesar by affirming the forearmed, always with detriment, allowed delay. Oh, how bewildered unto me appeared, with tongue asunder and his windpipe slit, Curio, who in speaking was so bold. And one who both his hands dissevered had, the stumps uplifting through the murky air, so that the blood made horrible his face, cried out, "Thou shalt remember Mosca also, who said, Alas, a thing done has an end," which was an ill seed for the Tuscan people. "And death unto thy race," thereto I added, whence he, accumulating woe on woe, departed like a person sad and crazed. But I remained to look upon the crowd, and saw a thing which I should be afraid without some further proof even to recount, if it were not the good conscience reassures me, that good companion which emboldens man beneath the hauberk of its feeling pure. I truly saw, and still I seem to see it, a trunk without a head walk in like manner as the others of the mournful herd, and by the hair it held, the head dissevered, hung from the hand in fashion of a lantern, and that upon us gazed, and said, "Oh me!" It of itself made to itself a lamp, and they were two in one, and one in two. How that can be, he knows who ordains it. When it was come close to the bridge's foot, it lifted high its arm with all the head, to bring more closely unto us its words, which were, "Behold now the sore penalty, thou who dost breathing go to the dead beholding. Behold if any be as great as this. And so that thou may carry news of me, know that Bertram de Born am I, the same who gave to the young king the evil comfort. I made the father and the son rebellious. Achitophel not more with Absalom and David did with his accursed goadings. Because I parted persons so united, parted do I now bear my brain, alas, from its beginning which is in this trunk. Thus is observed in me the counterpoise." Canto 29. The many people and the diverse wounds these eyes of mine had so inebriated, that they were wishful to stand still and weep. But said Virgilius, "What dost thou still gaze at? Why is thy sight still riveted down there among the mournful mutilated shades? Thou hast not done so at the other Bolge. Consider, if to count them thou believest, that 22 miles the valley winds, and now the moon is underneath our feet. Henceforth the time allotted us is brief, and more is to be seen than what thou seest. If thou hadst," I made answer thereupon, "attended to the cause for which I looked, perhaps a longer stay thou wouldst have pardoned." Meanwhile my guide departed, and behind him I went, already making my reply, and superadding, "In that cavern where I held mine eyes, with such attention fixed, I think a spirit of my blood laments the sin which down below there cost so much." Then said the master, "Be no longer broken thy thought from this time forward upon him. Attend elsewhere, and let there him remain. For I saw below the little bridge pointing at thee, and threatening with his finger fiercely, and heard him called Jerry de Bello. So wholly at that time wast thou impeded by him who formerly held Altaforte. Thou didst not look that way, so he departed." "O my conductor, his own violent death, which is not yet avenged for him," I said, "by any who his share in the shame made him disdainful, whence he went away, as I imagined, without speaking to me, and thereby made me pity him the more." Thus did we speak as far as the first place upon the crag, which the next valley shows down to the bottom, if there were more light. When we were now right over the last cloister of Malebolge, so that its lay brothers could manifest themselves unto our sight, diverse lamentings pierced me through and through, which with compassion had their arrows barbed, whereat mine ears I covered with my hands. What pain would be, if from the hospitals of Valladiciana twixt July and September, and of Maremma and Sardinia. All the diseases in one moat were gathered. Such was it here, and such a stench came from it as from putrescent limbs is wont to issue. We had descended on the furthest bank from the long crag, upon the left-hand still, and then more vivid was my power of sight down towards the bottom, where the ministress of the high lord, justice infallible, punishes forgers, which she here records. I do not think a sadder sight to see was in Aegina, the whole people sick. When was the air so full of pestilence, the animals down to the little worm all fell, and afterwards the ancient people, according as the poets have affirmed, were from the seed of ants restored again. Then was it to behold through that dark valley the spirits languishing in divers heaps. This on the belly, that upon the back one of the other lay, and others crawling shifted themselves among the dismal road. We step by step went onward without speech, gazing upon and listening to the sick, who had not strength enough to lift their bodies. I saw two sitting leaned against each other, as leans in heating platter against platter, from head to foot bespotted o'er with scabs. And never saw I plied a curry-comb by stable boy for whom his master waits, or him who keeps awake unwillingly, as every one was plying fast the bite of nails upon himself, for the great rage of itching, which no other succour had. And the nails downward with them dragged the scab, in fashion as a knife the scales of bream, or any other fish that has them largest. O thou that with thy fingers dost dismail thee, began my leader unto one of them, and makest of them pincers now and then, tell me if any Latian is with those who are herein, so may thy nails suffice thee to all eternity unto this work. Latians are we, whom thou so wasted seest, both of us here, one weeping made reply. But who art thou that questionest about us? And said the guide, One am I who descends down with this living man from cliff to cliff, and I intend to show hell unto him. Then broken was their mutual support, and trembling each one turned himself to me, with others who had heard him by rebound. Wholly to me did the good master gather, saying, Say unto them whate'er thou wishest. And I began, since he would have it so. So may your memory not steal away in the first world from out the minds of men, but so may it survive neath many suns. Say to me who ye are, and of what people. Let not your foul and loathsome punishment make you afraid to show yourselves to me. I of Arezzo was, one made reply, and Albert of Siena had me burned. But what I died for does not bring me here. 'Tis true, I said to him, speaking in jest, that I could rise by flight into the air, and he who had conceit but little wit would have me show to him the art. And only because no Daedalus I made me be burned by one whom held him as his son. But unto the last Bolgia of the 10, for alchemy, which in the world I practised, Minos, who cannot err, has me condemned. And to the poet said I, Now was ever so vain a people as the Sienese? Not for a certainty the French by far. Whereat the other leper who had heard me replied unto my speech, taking out Stricca, who knew the art of moderate expenses, and Nicolo, who the luxurious use of cloves discovered earliest of all, within that garden where such seed takes root, and taking out the band, among whom was squandered Caccia de Asian, his vineyards and vast woods, and where his wit the Abagliado preferred. But that thou know who thus doth second thee against the Sienese, make sharp thine eye towards me, so that my face well answer thee. And thou shalt see I am Capoccio's shade, who meddles falsified by alchemy. Thou must remember, if I well descry thee, how I a skilful ape of nature was. Canto 30. 'Twas at the time when Juno was enraged for Semele against the Theban blood, as she already more than once had shown, so reft of reason Athamas became, that seeing his own wife with children twain walking encumbered upon either hand, he cried, Spread out the nets, that I may take the lioness and her whelps upon the passage, and then extended his unpitying claws, seizing the first, who had the name Learchus, and whirled him round and dashed him on a rock. And she, with the other burthen, drowned herself. And at the time when fortune downward hurled the Trojans' arrogance, that all things dared, so that the king was with his kingdom crushed, Hecubus sad, disconsolate, and captive, when lifeless she beheld Polyxena, and of her Polydorus on the shore of ocean was the dolorous one aware. Out of her senses like a dog she barked, so much the anguish had her mind distorted. But not of Thebes the Furies nor the Trojan were ever seen in any one so cruel in goading beasts, and much more human members, as I beheld two shadows pale and naked, who, biting in the manner ran along that a boar does. When from the sty turned loose, one to Capocchio came, and by the nape seized with his teeth his neck, so that in dragging it made his belly grate the solid bottom. And the Aretine, who trembled, had remained, said to me, "That mad sprite is Gianni Schicchi, and raving goes thus harrying other people." "Oh," said I to him, "so may not the other set teeth on thee. Let it not weary thee to tell us who it is, ere it dart hence." And he to me, "That is the ancient ghost of the nefarious Myrrha, who became beyond all rightful love her father's lover. She came to sin with him after this manner by counterfeiting of another's form, as he who goeth yonder undertook that he might gain the lady of the herd to counterfeit in himself busso donati, making a will and giving it due form. And after the two maniacs had passed on whom I held mine eye, I turned it back to look upon the other evil-born. I saw one made in fashion of a lute, if he had only had the groin cut off just at the point at which a man is forked. The heavy dropsy, that so disproportions the limbs with humours, which it ill concocts, that the face corresponds not to the belly, compelled him so to hold his lips apart as does the hectic, who because of thirst one towards the chin, the other upward turns. O ye who without any torment are, and why I know not, in the world of woe, he said to us, behold and be attentive unto the misery of Master Adam. I had while living much of what I wished, and now, alas, a drop of water crave. The rivulets that from the verdant hills of Cassinton descend down into Arno, making their channels to be cold and moist, ever before me stand, and not in vain. For far more doth their image dry me up than the disease which strips my face of flesh. The rigid justice that chastises me draweth occasion from the place in which I sinned, to put the more my sighs in flight. There's Romena, where I counterfeited the currency imprinted with the Baptist, for which I left my body burned above. But if I here could see the tristful soul of Guido, or Alessandro, or their brother, for Brandes' fount, I would not give the sight. One is within already, if the raving shades that are going round about speak truth. But what avails it me whose limbs are tied? If I were only still so light that in 100 years I could advance 1 inch, I had already started on the way, seeking him out among this squalid folk, although the circuit be 11 miles, and be not less than half a mile across. For them am I in such a family. They did induce me into coining florins, which had 3 carats of impurity. And I to him, who are the 2 poor wretches that smote like unto a wet hand in winter, lying there close upon thy right hand confines? I found them here, replied he, when I reined into this chasm, and since they have not turned, nor do I think they will for evermore. One the false woman is, who accused Joseph, the other false Sinon, Greek of Troy. From acute fever they send forth such reek. And one of them, who felt himself annoyed at being peradventure named so darkly, smote with the fist upon his hardened paunch. It gave a sound, as if it were a drum, and Master Adam smote him in the face, with arm that did not seem to be less hard, saying to him, Although be taken from me all motion for my limbs that heavy are, I have an arm unfettered for such need. Whereat he answer made, When thou didst go unto the fire, thou hadst it not so ready, but hadst it so and more when thou wast coining. the dropsicle. Thou sayest true in that, but thou wast not so true a witness there, where thou wast questioned of the truth at Troy. If I spake false, thou falsifiedst the coin, said Sinon, and for one fault I am here, and thou for more than any other demon. Remember, perjurer, about the horse, he made reply, who had the swollen belly, and rueful be it thee, the whole world knows it. Rueful to thee the thirst wherewith cracks thy tongue, the Greek said, and the putrid water that hedges so thy paunch before thine eyes. Then the false coiner, so is gaping wide thy mouth for speaking evil as 'tis wont. Because if I have thirst, and humour stuff me, thou hast the burning and the head that aches, and to lick up the mirror of Narcissus thou wouldst not want words many to invite thee. In listening to them I was wholly fixed, when said the master to me, Now just look, for little wants it that I quarrel with thee. When I heard him in anger speak to me, I turned me round towards him with such shame that still it eddies through my memory. And as he is, who dreams of his own harm, who dreaming wishes it may be a dream, so that he craves what is, as if it were not. Such I became, not having power to speak, for to excuse myself I wished, and still excused myself, and did not think I did it. Less shame doth wash away a greater fault, the master said, than this of thine has been. Therefore thyself disburden of all sadness, and make account that I am I beside thee, if e'er it come to pass that fortune bring thee where there are people in a like dispute. For a base wish it is to wish to hear it. End of Inferno, Canto 26 to 30.
Recording by Marlo Diane. ForbiddenDragon.blogspot.com. The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. Translated by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Inferno, Canto 31 to 34. Inferno, Canto 31. One and self-same tongue first wounded me, so that it tinged the one cheek and the other, and then held out to me the medicine. Thus do I hear that once Achilles' spear, his and his father's, used to be the cause first of a sad and then a gracious boon. We turned our backs upon the wretched valley, upon the bank that girds it round about, going across it without any speech. There it was less than night, and less than day, so that my sight went little in advance, but I could hear the blare of a loud horn, so loud it would have made each thunder faint, which, counter to it following its way, mine eyes directed wholly to one place. After the dolorous discomfiture, when Charlemagne the holy emprise lost, so terribly Orlando sounded not. Short while my head turned thitherward I held, when many loftier towers I seemed to see, whereat I, Master, say, what town is this? And he to me, because thou peerest forth, athwart the darkness at too great a distance, it happens that thou errest in thy fancy. Well shalt thou see, if thou arrivest there, how much the sense deceives itself by distance. Therefore a little faster spur thee on. Then tenderly he took me by the hand, and said, Before we farther have advanced, that the reality may seem to thee less strange, know that these are not towers, but giants, and they are in the well, around the bank, from navel downward, one and all of them. As, when the fog is vanishing away, little by little doth the sight refigure, where'er the mist that crowds the air conceals, so piercing through the dense and darksome air, more and more near approaching toward the verge, my error fled, and fear came over me, because as on its circular parapets Montenegrione crowns itself with towers, even thus the margin which surround the well, with one half of their bodies turreted, the horrible giants whom Jove menaces, even now from out the heavens when he thunders. And I of one already saw the face, shoulders and breast, and great part of the belly, and down along his sides both of his arms. Certainly nature, when she left the making of animals like these, by taking such executors from Mars, and if of elephants and whales she doth not repent her, whosoever looketh subtlety, more just and more discreet will hold her for it. For where the argument of intellect is added unto evil will and power, no rampart can the people make against it. His face appeared to me as long and large as is at Rome the pine cone of St. Peter's, and in proportion were the other bones, so that the margin, which an apron was, down from the middle, showed so much of him above it, that to reach up to his hair, 3 Frieslanders in vain had vaulted them, for I beheld 30 great palms of him, down from the place where man his mantle buckles. Raphael me amorec Isabariel mai, began to clamour the ferocious mouth, to which were not befitting sweeter psalms. Anon to him my guide, soul idiotic, keep to thy horn, and vent thyself with that, when wrath or other passion touches thee. Search round thy neck, and thou wilt find the belt which keeps it fastened. O bewildered soul, and see it, where it bars thy mighty breast. Then said to me, he doth himself accuse, this one is Nimrod, by whose evil thought one language in the world is still not used. Here, let us leave him and not speak in vain, for even such to him is every language as his to others, which to none is known. Therefore a longer journey did we make, turned to the left in a crossbow shot, off we found another far more fierce and large. In binding him who might the master be, I cannot say, but he had pinioned close behind the right arm and in front the other, with chains, that held him so begirt about from the neck down, that on the part uncovered it wound itself as far as the 5th gyre. This proud one wished to make experiment on his own power against the supreme Jove, my leader said, whence he has such a guerdon. Emphialtes is his name. He showed great prowess, what time the giants terrified the gods. The arms he wielded, never more he moves. And I to him, if possible, I should wish that of the measureless Briareus these eyes of mine might have experience. Whence he replied, thou shalt behold Antaeus, close by here, who can speak and is unbound, who at the bottom of all crime shall place us. Much farther yon is he whom thou wouldst see, and he is bound and fashioned like to this one, save that he seems in aspect more ferocious. There never was an earthquake of such might that it could shake a tower so violently as Emphialtes suddenly shook himself. Then was I more afraid of death than ever, for nothing more was needful than the fear, if I had not beheld the manacles. Then we proceeded farther in advance, and to Antinous came, who full 5 ells without the head forth issued from the cavern. O thou who in the valley fortunate, which Scipio the heir of glory made when Hannibal turned back with all his hosts, once brought'st 1,000 lions for thy prey, and who hast thou been at the mighty war among thy brothers, some it seems still think, the sons of earth the victory would have gained, place us below, nor be disdainful of it, there where the colt doth lock Cocytus up. Make us not go to Tydeus, nor Typhoeus. This one can give of that where here is longed for, therefore stoop down and do not curl thy lip. Still in the world can he restore thy fame, because he lives and still expects long life, if to itself grace call him not untimely. So said the master, and in haste the other, his hands extended and took up my guide, hands whose great pressure Hercules once felt. Virgilius, when he had felt himself embraced, said unto me, Draw nigh, that I may take thee. Then of himself and me one bundle made, as seems the Carisenda, to behold beneath the leaning side, where goes a cloud above it so that opposite it hangs. Such did Antaeus seem to me, who stood, watching to see him stoop, and then it was I could have wished to go some other way. But lightly in the abyss, which swallows up Judas with Lucifer, he put us down, nor thus bowed downward may he there delay, but, as a mast does in a ship, uprose. Inferno, Canto 32. If I had rhymes both rough and stridulous, as were appropriate to the dismal hole down upon which thrust all the other rocks, I would press out the juice of my conception more fully, but because I have them not without fear, I bring myself to speak. For 'tis no enterprise to take in jest to sketch the bottom of all the universe, nor for a tongue that cries Mama and Babbo. But may these ladies help this verse of mine, who helped Amphion in enclosing Thebes, that from the fact the word be not diverse. O rabble ill-begotten above all, who are in the place to speak of which is hard, 'twere better ye had here been sheep or goats, when we were down within the darksome well beneath the giant's feet, but lower far, and I was scanning still the lofty wall, I heard it said to me, Look how thou steppest, take heed thou do not trample with thy feet the heads of the tired, miserable brothers. Whereat I turned me round, and saw before me and underfoot a lake, that from the frost the semblance had of glass, and not of water. So thick a veil ne'er made upon its current in winter-time Danube in Austria, nor there beneath the frigid sky the dawn, as was here, so that if Tabernic had fallen upon it, or Pietrapania, and the edge would not have given a creak, as to croak the frog doth place himself with muzzle out of water, when it is dreaming of gleaning oftentimes the peasant girl, livid as far down as where the shame appears, where the disconsolate shades within the ice, setting their teeth unto the note of storks. Each one his countenance held downward bent, from mouth the cold, from eyes the doleful heart, among them witness of itself procures. When round about me, somewhat I had looked, I downward turned me, and saw two so close the hair upon their heads together mingled. Ye who so strain your breasts together, tell me, I said, who are you? And they bent their necks, and when to me their faces they had lifted, their eyes, which first were only mist within, gushed o'er the eyelids, and the frost congealed the tears between, and locked them up again. Clamp never bound together wood with wood so strongly, whereat they, like two he-goats, butted together, so much wrath o'ercame them. And one, who had by reason of the cold lost both his ears, still with his visage downward, said, Why dost thou so mirror thyself in us? If thou desire to know who these two are, the valley whence Bazinio descends belong to them, and to their father, Albert. They from one body came, and all Cania thou shalt search through, and shalt not find a shade more worthy to be fixed in gelatin. Not he in whom were broken breast and shadow at one and the same blow by author's hand, Phocacia not he who me encumbers. So with his head I see no farther forward, and bore the name of Sacil Mascheroni. Well knowest thou who he was, if thou art Tuscan, and that thou put me not to further speech, know that I, Commission de Pazzi, was and wait Carlinio to exonerate me. Then I beheld 1,000 faces, made purple with cold, whence o'er me came a shudder, and evermore will come at frozen ponds. And while we were advancing towards the middle, where everything of weight unites together, and I was shivering in the eternal shade, whether 'twill or destiny or chance, I know not, but in walking 'mong the heads, I struck my foot hard in the face of one. Weeping, he growled, "Why dost thou trample me, unless thou comest to increase the vengeance of Monteperti? Why dost thou molest me? And I, my master, now wait here for me, that I through him may issue from a doubt. Then thou mayest hurry me, as thou shalt wish." The leader stopped, and to that one I said, who was blaspheming vehemently still, "Who art thou, that thus reprehendest others? Now who art thou, that goest through Antinoria smiting," replied he, "other people's cheeks, so that if thou wert living 'twere too much?" "Living I am, and dear to thee it may be," was my response, "if thou demandest fame, that mid the other notes thy name I place. And he to me, for the reverse I long. Take thyself hence, and give me no more trouble, for ill thou knowest to flatter in this hollow." Then by the scalp behind I seized upon him, and said, "It must needs be thou name thyself, or not a hair remain upon thee here." Whence he to me, "Though thou strip off my hair, I will not tell thee who I am, nor show thee, if on my head 1,000 times thou fall." I had his hair and hand already twisted, and more than one shock of it had pulled out, he barking, with his eyes held firmly down. When cried another, "What doth ail thee, Bocca? Is not enough to clatter with thy jaws, but thou must bark? What devil touches thee?" "Now," said I care not to have thee speak, accursed traitor, for unto thy shame I will report of thee veracious news." "Begone," replied he, "and tell what thou wilt, but be not silent if thou issue hence of him who had just now his tongue so prompt. He weepeth here the silver of the French I saw. Thus canst thou praise it, him of Dura, there where the sinners stand out in the cold. If thou shouldst question me who else was there, thou hast beside thee him of Beccaria, of whom the gore at Florence slit asunder. Gianni del Solendier, I think, may be yonder with Ganelian, and Tebelido, who opted for Xenia when the people slept. Already we had gone away from him, when I beheld 2 frozen in one hole, so that one head a hood was to the other, and even as bread through hunger is devoured the uppermost, and the other set his teeth, there where the brain is to the nape united. Not in another fashion Tydeus gnawed the temples of Menelipidus in disdain, that one did the skull, and the other things. O thou who showest by such bestial sign thy hatred against him whom thou art eating, tell me the wherefore, said I, with this compact, that if thou rightfully of him complain, and knowing who ye are and his transgression, I in the world above repay thee for it, if that wherewith I speak be not dried up. Inferno, Canto 33. His mouth uplifted from his grim repast, that sinner, wiping it upon the hair of the same head that he behind had wasted. Then he began, Thou wilt that I renew the desperate grief which wrings my heart already, to think of only ere I speak it. But if my words be seed that may bear fruit of infamy to the traitor whom I gnaw, speaking and weeping shalt thou see together. I know not who thou art, nor by what mode thou hast come down here, but a Florentine thou seemest to me truly, when I hear thee. Thou hast to know I was Count Ugolino, and this one was Ruggieri the Archbishop. Now I will tell thee why I am such a neighbour. That by the effect of his malicious thoughts, trusting in him, I was made prisoner, and after put to death I need not say. But nevertheless, what thou canst not have heard, that is to say, how cruel was my death, hear shalt thou, and shalt know if he has wronged me. A narrow perforation in the mew, which bears because of me the title of famine, and which others still must be locked up, had shown me through its opening many moons already, when I dreamed the evil dream which of the future rent from me the veil. This one appeared to me as lord and master, hunting the wolf and whelps upon the mountain for which the Pisans cannot Luca see. With sleuth-hounds gaunt and eager and well-trained, Guglielandi with Sistemondi and Lelafrianci had sent me out before him to the front. After brief course seemed unto me forspent the father and the sons, and with sharp tushes it seemed to me I saw their flanks ripped open. When I before the morrow was awake, moaning amid their sleep, I heard my sons, who with me were, and asking after bread. Cruel indeed art thou, if yet thou grieve not, thinking of what my heart foreboded me. And weepest thou not? What art thou wont to weep at? They were awake now, and the hour drew nigh at which our food used to be brought to us, and through his dream was each one apprehensive. And I heard locking up the under door of the horrible tower, whereat without a word I gazed into the faces of my sons. I wept not, I within so turned to stone. They wept, and darling little Anselm mine said, Thou dost gaze so, father, what doth ail thee? Still not a tear I shed, nor answer made all of that day, nor yet the night thereafter, until another sun rose on the world. As now a little glimmer made its way into the dolorous prison, and I saw upon 4 faces my very own aspect. Both of my hands in agony I bit, and, thinking that I did it from desire of eating, on a sudden they uprose, and said they, Father, much less pain 'twill give us if thou do eat of us. Thyself did clothe us with this poor flesh, and do thou strip it off. I calmed me then, not to make them more sad. That day we all were silent, and the next. Ah, obdurate earth, wherefore didst thou not open? When we had come unto the 4th day, Gaddo threw himself down outstretched before my feet, saying, My father, why dost thou not help me? And there he died, and as thou seest me, I saw the 3 fall one by one between the 5th day and the 6th, whence I betook me. Already blind, a groping over each, and 3 days called them after they were dead. Then hunger did what sorrow could not do. When he had said this, with his eyes distorted, the wretched skull resumed he with his teeth, which, as a dog's upon the bone, were strong. Ah, Pisa, thou uproarium of the people, of the fair land there where the sea doth sound, since slow to punish thee thy neighbours are. Let the Capabria and the Gorgana move, and make a hedge across the mouth of Arno, that every person in thee it may drown. For if Count Ugolino had the fame of having in thy castles thee betrayed, thou shouldst not on such cross have put his sons, guiltless of any crime, thou modern Thebes. Their youth made Ulogassione and Rogata, and the other 2 my song doth name above. We pass still further onward, where the ice and nether people ruggedly in swaths, not downward turned, but all of them reversed, Weeping itself there does not let them weep, and grief that finds a barrier in the eyes turns itself inward to increase the anguish. Because the earliest tears a cluster form, and in the manner of a crystal visor fill all the cup beneath the eyebrow full. And notwithstanding that, as in a callous, because of cold all sensibility its station had abandoned in my face, still it appeared to me I felt some wind, whence I, my master, who sets this in motion, is not below here every vapour quenched, whence he to me, full soon shalt thou beware thine eye shall answer, make to thee of this, seeing the cause which raineth down the blast. And one of the wretches of the foul crust cried out to us, O soul so merciless that the last port is given unto you, lift from mine eyes the rigid veils that I may vent the sorrow which impregns my heart a little, ere the weeping recongeal. Whence I to him, if thou wouldst have me help thee, say who thou wast, and if I free thee not, may I go to the bottom of the ice. Then he replied, I am Friar Elbigerio, he I am of the fruit of the bad garden, who here a date am getting for my fig. Oh, said I to him, now art thou too dead, and he to me, how may my body fare up in the world, no knowledge I possess. Such an advantage has this Potamia, that sometimes the soul descendeth here sooner than Atropos in motion sets it. And, that thou mayest more willingly remove from off my countenance these glassy tears, know that as soon as my soul betrays, as I have done, his body by a demon is taken from him, who thereafter rules it, until his time has wholly been revolved. Itself down rushes into such a cistern, and still perchance above appears the body of yonder shade that winters here behind me. This thou shouldst know if thou hast just come down. It is Sir Branca d'Oria, and many years have passed away since he is thus locked up. I think, said I to him, thou dost deceive me, for Branca d'Oria is not dead as yet, and eats and drinks and sleeps and puts on clothes. In moat above, said he, of Malbranche, there where is boiling the tenacious pitch, and yet has Michael Zanse not arrived. When this one left a devil in his steed, in his own body, and one near of kin who made together with him the betrayal, but hitherward stretched out thy hand forthwith, open my eyes, and open them I did not, and to be rude to him was courtesy. Ah, Genesee, ye man at variance with every virtue, full of every vice, wherefore are ye not scattered from the world? For with the vilest spirit of Romagna I found of you one such who for his deeds and soul, already in Cocytus baths, and still above in body, seems alive. Inferno, Canto 34. Vixilla regis prodient inferni, toward us. Therefore look in front of thee, my master said, if thou discernest him. As when there breathes a heavy fog, or when our hemisphere is darkening into night, appears far off a mill that wind is turning, methought that such a building then I saw, and, for the wind, I drew myself behind my guide, because there was no other shelter. Now was I, and with fear in verse I put it, there where the shades were wholly covered up, and glimmered through like unto straws and glass, some prone or lying, others stand erect, this with the head, and that one with the soles, another bow-like, face to feet inverts, when in advance so far we had proceeded, that it my master pleased to show me the creature who once had the beauteous semblance. He from before me moved, and made me stop, saying, Behold this, and behold the place where thou with fortitude must arm thyself. How frozen I became and powerless then! Ask it not, reader, for I write it not, because all language would be insufficient. I did not die, and I alive remain not. Think for thyself now, hast thou aught of wit, what I became, being of both deprived. The emperor of the kingdom Dolorous from his mid-breast forth issued from the ice, and better with a giant I compare, than do the giants with those arms of his. Consider now how great must be that whole, which unto such a part conforms itself. Were he as fair once as he is now foul, and lifted up his brow against his Maker, which may proceed from him all tribulation. Oh, what a marvel it appeared to me when I beheld 3 faces on his head, the one in front, and that vermilion was, 2 were the others that were joined with this, above the middle part of either shoulder, and they were joined together at the crest. And the right-hand one seemed twixt white and yellow, the left was such to look upon as those who come from where the Nile falls valleyward. Underneath each came forth 2 mighty wings, such as it befitting were so great a bird. Sails of the sea I never saw so large. No feathers had they, but as of a bat their fashion was, and he was waving them, so that 3 winds proceeded forth therefrom. Thereby Cocytus wholly was congealed. With 6 eyes did he weep, and down 3 chins trickled the teardrops in the bloody drivel. At every mouth he with his teeth was crunching a sinner in the manner of a brake, so that he 3 of them tormented thus. To him in front the biting was as naught unto the clawing, for sometimes the spine utterly stripped of all the skin remained. That soul up there, which has the greatest pain, the master said, is Judas Iscariot. With head inside he plies his legs without. Of the 2 others, who head downward are, the one who hangs from the black jowl is Brutus. See how he writhes himself and speaks no word. And the other, who so stalwart seems, is Cassius. But night is reascending, and 'tis time that we depart, for we have seen the whole. As seemed him good, I clasped him round the neck, and he the vantage seized of time and place, and when the wings were opened wide apart, he laid fast hold upon the shaggy sides, from fell to fell descended downward, then between the thick hair and the frozen crust. When we were come to where the thigh revolves, exactly on the thickness of the haunch, the guide, with labour and with hard-drawn breath, turned round his head where he had had his legs, and grappled to the hair, as one who mounts, so that to hell I thought we were returning. Keep fast thy hold, for by such stairs as these, the master said, panting as one fatigued, must we perforce depart from so much evil. Then through the opening of a rock he issued, and down upon the margin seated me. Then towards me he outstretched his weary step. I lifted up mine eyes, and thought to see Lucifer in the same way I had left him, and I beheld him upward hold his legs. And if I then became disquieted, let stolid people think who do not see what the point is beyond which I had passed. Rise up, the master said, upon thy feet. The way is long, and difficult the road, and now the sun to middle tierce returns. It was not any palace corridor, there where we were, but dungeon natural, with floor uneven and unease of light. Ere from the abyss I tear myself away, my master, said I when I had arisen, to draw me from an error, speak a little. Where is the ice, and how is this one fixed thus upside down? And how in such short time from eve to morn has the sun made his transit? And he to me, thou still imaginest thou art beyond the centre, where I grasped the hair of the fell worm who mines the world. That side thou wast, so long as I descended, which round I turned me thou didst pass the point to which things heavy draw from every side, and now beneath the hemisphere art come, opposite which overhangs the vast dry land, and 'neath whose cope was put to death the man who without sin was born and lived. Thou hast thy feet upon the little spear which makes the other face of the Judicia. Here it is morn, but it is evening there, and he who with his hair a stairway made us, still fixed remaineth as he was before. Upon this side he fell down out of heaven, and all the land that whilom here emerged, for fear of him, made of the sea a veil, and came to our hemisphere, and peradventure to flee from him, what on this side appears at the place vacant here and back recoiled. A place there is below, from Beelzebub, as far receding as the tomb abstends, which not by sight is known, but by sound, of a small rivulet that there descendeth through chasm within the stone, which is gnawed with course that winds about and slightly falls. The guide and I into that hidden road now entered, to return to the bright world, and without care of having any rest. We mounted up, he first and I the second, till I beheld through a round aperture some of the beauteous things that heaven doth bear. Thence we came forth to re-behold the stars. End of Inferno, Canto 31 to 34. End of the Divine Comedy, Inferno, by Dante Alighieri, and translated by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Recorded by Marlo Diane, April 6 to 7, 2006, Pisgah West, Prince Edward Island.